morning. My name is Sky Nicholson, and I am a member of the Sunday Services team. I'd like to share with you this morning's opening words, which are an excerpt from my own book, The Other Side of the Stars. What if we knew we couldn't live another day without love? Would we be lying to ourselves? The lie is thinking love is ever controlled by someone. Love is not a well running wet and dry. Love is the sun ever shining behind clouds, behind shadows, behind the backside of night. Even in the darkness, we are pulled by its gravity. Just wait, you fool, and dawn will come.
Would anyone like to open the Wonder Box today? Yep. Oh, what is that? You want to grab that? What is it? Oh, it's a glass of water. Thank you. Oh. You can go sit down. Oh, that was very convenient. Oh, you know what this reminds me of? This is something adults sometimes talk about. It's kind of a, I don't know if it's a spiritual question or a philosophical question, scientific question. Can anyone think about what the question might be? Is this glass half full or is it half empty? What do you think? Is it half full or half empty? Well, some people would say it's half full and some people would say it's half empty. And you know, it's not really even about the glass. It's about how we look at life sometimes. And at different times of our lives, we might lean more towards seeing what's left and seeing what has been diminished. Sometimes we see that when we're thinking about a birthday that we celebrate and thinking about the years that we've had or thinking about the years still to come. Or we see the birth of a child or a grandchild or a niece or nephew, and we think about all the life still that one has to have. And no matter how we look at it, both of those answers are true. And what's true is that whether it's half empty or half full, there is still something left in it for us to drink. I shoveled this morning, so I needed extra water because the show had to go on. We had work to do. Today we're talking about love. This month we've been talking about love. So whether you're online or here in person, something's got to be shared. And Sky wrote a beautiful reflection and we have beautiful music. And so we wanted to make sure that we didn't let this day go by without sharing what a little more love with one another. So sometimes when we're looking for love, we look for it in places that we expect. Maybe in a friend at school or a sibling or someone that we have a close relationship with, a longtime friend that we can call. And sometimes that's the only place we look. We look in the place where we know there is water still. And then as the water goes down and down and down, we think there's only so much love, so many places I can look. And my hope is that we think in those times when maybe things don't feel so full, that we can find new places to look. Like in a sanctuary with fewer people. Is there less love here today? Is there less meaning to be found here today, or less sopranos here today, or less, well, okay, there might be one or two, but the love, the sound that you'll hear will just be as beautiful because we created it together. So whether this sanctuary or this cup is filled overflowing with people and love, or there's just some of us, we can tap into that love that is here and present, that is within each of us, and have another hour to live this privileged life together. So I think we're going to sing You out to your class. Oh my God, we're all singing for you and all of our children here and in spirit. Let us sing our children off to their classes today.
brought my readers today, so I'm at that age, you guys. I'm right at that age where I'm like having to wear these more often. So here I am, so I can see. So in our Sunday services team meeting, Nick posed the question, what is love? Now, as a poet, this is my favorite question. Every poem at its core is about love, says me, and about 9,000 other poets, according to my quick Google search. So, what is love? Besides a 1990s club mix song by Hadaway. I don't know if y'all know this one. What is love? Baby, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me no more. Love is blind. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love is like oxygen. You get too much, you get too high, not enough, and you're gonna die. Y'all know that one, right? So, as poetry is the language of the soul, love is the ultimate muse. It is everything we are driven to write about in this way is ultimately about love, even when it was also about anger and fear, loss, angst, or grief. So here's how my poet scientist mind thinks of it. What if there's love with a lowercase l? I can't really see with these. And love with a capital L. Okay, so I love milkshakes. I love the heated seats in my car. I love my dog. I love the sunrise. And I really love my kids. These kinds of love, lowercase love, are more like verbs, actions, placing myself in a state of being or doing, feeling. Now, it's a spectrum, of course, right? A pretty wide one. I wouldn't die for my heated seats the way I would for my children. I wouldn't sacrifice my well-being to save a spoonful of chocolate milkshake. I mean, maybe I would. It's a messy word, right? Love, it can hurt or it can feel ecstatic. It can cause me to do ridiculous things. Sometimes it can blind me or make me manic. This love can even get hijacked or imitated by lower vibration things like lust or greed or obsession. But then what if there's love? Big L. Not a verb, but a noun, a proper noun, a concept. No, a force, a universal force like gravity. And what if, like gravity, it's here, always acting on us, in us, around us, simmering with energy, whether we choose to believe in it or not? And what if this capital L love is such an immense, infinite force that we cannot really put it in a container and label it? It doesn't require anything of us, it just is. We cannot buy it or sell it or even give it or receive it, but we can find it. We can't see it or quantify it, but we know it is there, much like gravity, because we can observe its effects on ourselves and on other objects. What if, like gravity, I can feel when I'm moving against love? It takes effort, concentration, considerable force and energy to oppose it. Yet, in the end, love, just like gravity, always prevails, returning us to center, to orbit. What if this love is a driving force, a state of alignment that pulls us into next right action or holds us in pause? What if this love is what guides monarchs on their 1,000-mile migration, or this love tells the seeds underground to begin to swell in February? What if this unnameable force is what has us saying of our challenges or struggles, it was a blessing in disguise because we feel deep in our souls that realignment with love? How do I know it's love? Because I can feel it right here. And how do I know it's not heartburn? Because it doesn't tighten, it opens. Even when it aches, it opens. That little light inside of me begins to glow a tiny bit brighter when aligning with love, as if recognizing its own kind. So, what is love? It's a force greater than me or my ego or my fear. It is a force greater than rage or violence or hate. The world can feel dark and painful. Lately, it seems like there is little evidence of love in very many places. I watch the news and I cannot understand why evil seems to be winning. But I know love, big L, is there, omnipresent, a force vibrating under everything because it comes from within me and from within the rocks and the soil and the trees and the sun and the stars, from the very air that I and everyone else breathes. I can feel it. I can feel it underlying that little L love that shakes my bones when I look at my children, or the way my dog stares up at me when I scratch her belly, or in the friend who dropped off that soup when we were sick, the birds that are beginning to sing in my backyard, or the Kroger bagger that placed my blackberries on the top, or the soft peace that shudders through me when my butt is warmed by those car seats on a cold day.
We have one reading today. That reading is an excerpt from a writing called "We Call These Things Love" by the Reverend Dr. Adam Robersmith. My understanding of religious community is centered in a love that must be shared to exist and grow, is powerful through relatedness, and sustains individuals while drawing them into community. I imagine an ecology of love rooted and growing within our congregations and communities, a vast interconnectedness of our own forests and oceans, plains, and deserts. Unitarian Universalism, I believe, can bring such community into being. By organizing through covenants, we affirm that relationship is at the core of our faith, that love is at the center. I have found a religious home here because we are a people of covenant, of relationship. When we are living our faith, we use our relational power to grow in a love that values and respects everything it connects. Love is one of those words that holds so much, and yet we use it as though we all know exactly what we each mean. There are as many ways to think about the concept of love as there are people. Some of us think about it as a virtue or an ethic. Others as the nature of the sacred or the core of human relationship. And yet others as an emotion, a practice, or a choice. What if what we perceive as love is also nurture and mutuality and sustainability and balance embedded in networks of relationship? Perhaps this is what the natural world can tell us about love. Not that other beings feel love as we do, but that we can recognize love as something more than our own feelings. If love is the very best version of relatedness, then love is at the center of life and networked through our entire existence. When I met with Sky last week to discuss the service for today, I admit I became a little embarrassed when she quoted a lyric that I didn't immediately recognize. Towards the end of our meeting, she asked rhetorically, I mean, who needs a heart when a heart can be broken? And not knowing she was quoting a lyric of a song, I thought she was just being poetic, being a poet and all. And I wanted to seem cool, so I think I nodded and was like, yeah, you're right. Who needs a heart when a heart can be broken? So she blinked a couple times and didn't say anything, which led me to think I was maybe missing something. She paused and then said graciously, like from your sermon title, what's love got to do with it? I realized in that moment a couple things. One was that even though I was born just over 12 months at the end of the 1980s, I had a lot to learn about 1980s pop culture. But then the other thing was that love songs are so ubiquitous that one can feel very familiar with a song's title or a key lyric without really knowing much more than that. Like, think about it for a second. Love is so saturated in our popular culture and social media landscape, especially in the music industry. I read an article this week titled Deconstructing the Love Song, How and Why Love Songs Work. And it estimates that around 100 million love songs have been recorded. 100 million. And I don't even need to know if that number is accurate, because think about it. It's just how common these types of songs are in genres from country to hip hop and from jazz to opera. 100 million is a big number. It's sort of like infinity. After a while, it's like, okay, I get it. It's a lot. Love songs, especially around this time of Valentine's Day, say a little bit of everything and yet a whole lot of nothing at times. Or at the very least, one could surmise that the themes and topics, even lyrics, get a little repetitive after a while. The article I mentioned lifts up the lyrics from a song I don't think is on any of our Spotify lists. In the 1934 Broadway musical, Life Begins at 8:40, that shares this sentiment. Quote, lovers long before us sang the same old chorus. If it worked in days of yore, what can I say in a love song that hasn't been said before? It reminds me of another part of my conversation with Sky about love, where we agreed that so much that we say about love can be cliche, it can feel cliche. And yet, because of this oversaturation of love, we can either conclude that it is overblown, inflated, and thus devalue how much importance it can hold in our life. Or, on the other hand, we could surmise that along with the 100 million songs recorded, the countless other books and plays and poems that have been written, or the billions of lives that have been born into this precious world, those that have experienced both overflowing joy and unthinkable woe, is this ever-present force, power, energy, mystery, source, and resource of love, of life that we might call love. In this sense, love is not depreciated by history's perennial search for exploration of its true character and contours. Love is not lessened by our inexplicable obsession or even our resentful rejection of it. No, instead, I believe love has become so ever present, so cliche, so overused, because we cannot escape it. We cannot get away from love, not even in the days of greatest horror and hopelessness. In times where the spark of life within each of us feels to be growing dim and vulnerable to the smallest force of wind or violence. Yes, love can never be used Up. So long as the earth keeps turning, the sun keeps rising and setting, and you and I, all of life that has been, is, and will be, keeps coming into this world with that mysterious longing for integrity, for reintegrating, remembering our wholeness with one another and with love itself. So we asked this Sunday and this month, what's love got to do with it? We ask this with the backdrop of the brokenheartedness of the world in which we are living, where day by day news would have us believe love is powerlessness and nothing for our disposal, for our use. But as Tina would say, a second-hand emotion. That love is nothing but a second-hand emotion. And we ask, what's love got to do with it as Unitarian Universalists around the country? We, as Unitarian Universalists, are trying to make sense of these past few weeks in light of our renewed emphasis and centering of love at the heart of our living religious tradition. What does love have to do with Unitarian Universalism is as paradoxical as applying it to life, because like the 100 million songs on love, I would suspect that almost every Unitarian Universalist that is here today and that ever has chosen to be in community, a community such as this one, chose to do so from some motivation related to love. How many of you came to UUCCI either out of a longing to find a loving community or to be around people who choose love over division, who choose to celebrate love rather than see it withheld or politicized or commoditized or weaponized for profit? I know you're raising your hand online as well. Yes, so many of us seek community, including what might be a glimpse of or a precursor to beloved community, when we experience some dissonance, some disintegration between the love in our hearts with the love we experience in life. In that tension, we naturally look for resolution, release, and return to integrity. In my opinion, a return to wholeness with love eternal. That is the essence of all that was, is, and ever will be. Our reading from this morning came from a recently published book, I meant to hold it up, titled Love at the Center, Unitarian Universalist Theologies. It was published less than a month ago. It was edited by our UUA president, the Reverend Dr. Sophia Betancourt. It is filled with 26 short meditations on love by Unitarian Universalist ministers, religious educators, musicians, and lay leaders who collectively are just beginning to answer what love has to do with Unitarian Universalism today in 2025 and for the road before us. I'd recommend anyone who is contemplating love's place and purpose in their life to purchase a copy and allow it to be a resource of personal reflection and growth. Love at the Center. The essay I chose to highlight was written by the Reverend Dr. Adam Robersmith, who serves the Universalist, not Unitarian, the Universalist Church of West Hartford, Connecticut. As an aside, back in the early 2010s, when he was serving Second Unitarian Church of Chicago, he offered me some spiritual direction as I began seminary and was extremely helpful in my early development as a minister in formation. In his essay, We Call These Things Love, he acknowledges love's depth and breadth, writing, quote, "Love is one of those words that holds so much, and yet we use it as though we all know exactly what we each mean. There are so many ways to think about the concept of love as there are people. Some of us think about it as a virtue or an ethic, others as the nature of the sacred or the core of human relationship, and yet others as an emotion, practice, or choice. End quote. I expect these different ways of thinking of love resonate more or less with each of you here today. With all of these different ways of thinking about love, then that 100 million number may not seem so big. So while love can be thought about with an ethical lens or to describe the sacred, Robersmith invites us to think about love in the context of community, both you, and otherwise. He asks us to consider, quote, what if what we perceive as love is also nurture and mutuality and sustainability and balance embedded in networks of relationship, end quote. Perhaps indeed, along with all these things we call love, in all the places, hopeful and hopeless, that we find love, love is that which connects us, sustains us, and nurtures us in a network of mutuality. Perhaps love, whatever it may be, in all the ways we may sense it, can be the ground upon which we create this community of hope and courage again and again, Sunday after Sunday, and throughout the week, rain or shine, snow or sleet, during a time of democracy or pandemic or rising authoritarianism. Perhaps love can be not cliche and naive, but the bottomless wellspring of creative possibility. Like my colleague, I believe our UU communities across the country can bring such love into being. He says, quote, by organizing through covenants, we affirm that relationship is at the core of our faith, that love is at the center. When we are living our faith, or I have found a religious home here because we are a people of covenant, of relationship. When we are living our faith, we use our relational power to grow in a love that values and respects everything it connects, end quote. In this sense, when we ask, not rhetorically, but earnestly, what's love got to do with it? We can say with some confidence, everything. Everything. Love has everything to do with it because life is relational and life is all there is. Even in death, we understand love through the relationship with who or what once was. Even in our dreams of the future, we understand what love is through our tender relationship of what might still be. So, my friends, as we continue to explore what it means to place love at the center of our lives, community, society, and world, may we find confidence in one another and in love itself, that love is more than enough to hold us together. That love is not oil or money, but infinity embedded in each of our hearts and in the trees and snowflakes, in the laughs and the tears. May this wondrous love be the source of our resilience and the energy that lights the spark of divine within each of us to live courageously in these times of great challenge. And in the end, if love is all that we have, may we know that even in the most hopeless hour, love abides and can help us find not just a way out of no way, but carve brand new paths for the streams of love that surely will flow, even and if only when the snow melts and the sun rises once more. May it be so, and amen.